That's probably the main reason why I'm so excited about DAOs, because I think there's so much talent in the world, and it'll give people in other countries and even people in the States who might not have the pedigree or who might not have the wealth, a lot of opportunity.
You're listening to the Unstoppable Podcast, the go-to place for everyone to learn about the latest innovations in Web3, NFTs, and the decentralized web. Welcome to the metaverse. GM, thank you for tuning in to the Unstoppable Podcast. My name's Josh Gordon. I'm your host, and today I'm joined by Peter Yang. He's deep in the DAO world, the founder of a Web3 DAO called Odyssey, focused on education. Now, Peter, I'm super stoked to dive into this. I'm learning a lot more about DAOs day in and day out, and I love the fact that you really have a education component here, because I think education is just the driver for adoption for crypto and Web3, broadly. So excited for this topic and conversation. How you doing today?
I'm great. Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me to this podcast, Josh. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
You're welcome. I've been tuning into some of your Twitter spaces, and just been following you guys since really the inception of the year. I feel like I'm friends with one of your contributors too on the content side, Bernie. I believe he worked on some content with y'all. But
Yes.
yeah, just to jump right on in, could you please start and explain really how you got into crypto originally and how that led you to starting this Web3 education DAO?
Yeah, so I've been working at a bunch of different Web2 companies, and I've also been a creator on the side. I have my blog posts, and I have a book and a course and stuff. And I'm really into the creator economy, right? And letting people make a living doing what they love online. And about a year ago, my friend Patrick started talking to me about crypto, and it just became obvious to me that the future of the creator economy is kind of in the crypto Web3 space, because in Web3, the promise is that the creators and the fans will be able to own the upside from their work, as opposed to having the platforms take a huge cut, right? So I started looking into it, and the more I look into it, the it's like a rabbit hole that you can't get out of. And I started learning about
100%.
NFTs, DeFi, and when I got to learning about DAOs, I figured might as well create a community that's more than just about myself, so we can all learn about this stuff together. And that's kind of how Odyssey started.
Gotcha. So you're really thinking about wanting to, I feel like a big thing on Twitter is learning in public. And so that seems like maybe partially a theme in your focus on writing is you're learning about Web3 as you go and learning alongside other people at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of need to have a social presence to be involved in the Web3 space, I think. So yeah, being able to meet a lot of great people on Twitter, join a lot of really cool Discord communities has been key to my learning journey.
Totally. So when we're talking about the DAO that you're part of now and the creator economy in general, why is the mission really focused on education with Odyssey?
Yeah, so maybe at some point the Web3 space will become like the UX will improve so much and like the scams will like decline so much that there won't be a need for a lot of education. But right now, that's definitely not the case. Like this space is kind of like the Wild West, and you really need to know what you're doing to explore the space without losing a ton of money or getting scammed or like just like paying a lot on gas, right? So that's why I thought education was really important, and everything from securing your wallet, the basic stuff, to making sure you're aping to the right NFT projects and DeFi protocols that are not scams. I think it's just really important for people to understand. You have to remember that 99% of people are not in the space. And there's also a huge chunk of people who are already very skeptical of this space. So I'm hoping that education will play a role in giving people a better on-ramp. Because once you get scammed or once something bad happens, you're probably just an anti-Web3 all together.
Yeah. And I just want to clarify here, like the education isn't just focused on like safety measures, right? It really, does it cover to why is Web3 important or these are the different parts of the technology stack. Are you covering it holistically? Are you really focused on more like security around keeping your assets safe?
Yeah, we want to take a person, anybody who's like slightly curious about this stuff, on a journey from not knowing anything about this at all, or maybe just having a Bitcoin or something, to all the way to being familiar enough to be able to buy NFTs, to be able to use DeFi protocols, to be able to contribute to DAOs. So you want to take someone from crypto curious to more crypto native, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally makes sense. And I appreciate that approach too. And it's important to talk about the whole gamut of things. And there's so much new information coming out day to day in crypto that it can be really overwhelming. And like the education space, even for someone who's in it full time, I am always trying to play catch up on the latest developments on the tech side or the latest NFT projects, and sometimes even forget to skip some of the latest developments on how to make sure I'm keeping my like wallet safe, and as browsers need updating and new features come out. So cool to see you focusing on all that. Now, as you've been building your team and been building, I'd say collaboratively, because that's the nature of the decentralized autonomous organization, what are some core principles that you and your team are following as you grow? And I ask that because I feel like working in a traditional company structure, you set out your mission and your vision, and you have some cultural values that everyone follows. Is that the same in
Yeah.
a DAO, or is it more free for all?
It can easily be free for all. I do think it's very important, at least the way I approach it is it's still very important for a DAO to have a clear mission and core values, and also like priorities for each quarter or each season, right? Um, I think, I mean, the reality is like, you know, a lot of DAOs haven't shipped a good product, right? So like, I'll take Odyssey as an example. Like we have a pretty clear mission. We want to bring 1 million people to Web3 by providing great, high quality education, and we have clear values. Some of them are not really being met right now, but like our values are quality over quantity. We want like high quality learning content. Another value is delightful onboarding, which is like we want to give people a good experience in the community. That's a work in progress because you know how messy these Discord servers get. And the last one
So
is we want
crazy.
to, yeah, it's pretty crazy. Last one, I want to like build a culture where people are paying it forward, helping each other, as opposed to trying to flip NFTs or trying to ask about floor prices. Um, those are our values, and it kind of goes down all the way down to like clear priorities, right? Like I do think you need to have maybe like 3 to 5 clear product teams or work streams for every quarter. Otherwise, and maybe this is like an anti-doubt, but like I feel like 6,000 people running like 100 different directions isn't gonna be very productive at all.
So you're really actually thinking about product and delivery on a quarterly basis.
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. And I feel like that's an interesting comment to make because I've heard of a lot of DAOs working on, okay, we set bounties and this is a task for someone to help contribute to. But I haven't really heard too much. And maybe it's because I'm not involved in some of that direction setting in a particular DAO myself. But I haven't heard of people setting like quarterly direction and vision and aligning under those goals. To me, it's always felt like more ad hoc requests coming left and right.
Yeah. So we have like core priorities from the core team, like 4 or 5 people. But if someone else wants to spin up a new project, as long as they check in with the core team, like we want to empower them to do it, right? But I don't think like a big bounty board, a big Jira board with like 100 different tickets and just like let the 6,000 people do a free for all is gonna build any good products. I just don't I just don't believe that. And another key challenge that all DAOs face, I think, is like let's say you have a Jira ticket about like write a blog post about DeFi, right? Like if 10 people pick up that ticket, probably 9 out of 10 will have bad content, and maybe 1 out of 10 will actually have content that's actually good. So you don't want to give people a bad experience where they like write this stuff and like it's actually not good enough and like kind of waste their time, right? So at least our DAO, we don't have a bounty board yet. We have like key work streams and people can help, but we don't have like 100 different tickets that people can take on.
Totally.
Yeah.
And you mentioned your core team here, and I have a follow-on question on that. For setting a core team within a DAO, and at least from your experience, how does that work? And is there ability for that core team to be changed? I see with the ApeCoin DAO, they have a founding board, and those people are sit on it for 6 months, and then after that, the community can vote on if they should stay on the board or if we should nominate new people. Is the core team within Odyssey DAO fluid or kind of set, and then you have contributing people from the community underneath?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, bottom line, like whether you're a company or a DAO, like talent is talent, and you want to retain good talent, right? So the core team is, well, we've only been around for like 4 months, so it's only like a season and a half so far. But the core team is season one, we had like 4 or 5 people on the core team, and season two, like a bunch of people in the community stepped up and just did a lot of really good work. So we added a few folks to the core team. Um, and some people are too busy working on other stuff, so we like removed like a few folks too. So it's a little bit fluid, but like if someone's really good, like I obviously want to keep them around. I don't want them to bounce.
No, that's a good comment there about wanting to retain talent. It's especially with like the fast nature of Web3, like people can move to any protocol or any DAO or any project with the click of a couple buttons. So you really want to keep the people who are really valuable to you. So
Yeah.
thinking more about now shifting from your experience standing up this DAO and the vision, I'd like to talk about just more DAOs broadly here. So I've got a question for you around what's the greatest barrier of entry to crypto that you see in like curious people, but who may not be like crypto native specifically. And I saw in one of your recent blog posts or newsletter articles, you wrote about how the onboarding journey in Web3 really has this almost waterfall approach where we have most of the people in exchanges and then a steep drop off to people who have like their own wallet, like a MetaMask. And then we have another steep drop off from people who use MetaMask to the amount of people who actually own NFTs or participate in DeFi.
Yeah, exactly. I think the biggest barrier is setting up that your own wallet and like being able to do something with it, right? That's the biggest barrier because just buying some ETH or Bitcoin and putting it into exchange, you're not really doing a lot in crypto. You're just kind of like holding an asset and hoping it'll appreciate. Um, and the moment that someone sets up a MetaMask wallet or something, like there's like so many scammers and phishers just like attacking you, right? It's just like all over the social media, and like that is the biggest barrier. The wallet, I really think, will become key to onboarding consumers to crypto. Like to me, the ideal on ramp is like I can just buy some crypto with my credit card and put it into the wallet directly. And after I buy some ETH or something, I know exactly what I want to do with it. Like the wallet itself has UX to show me like cool NFTs I might want to buy or like DeFi protocols I might want to use to earn yield. Like then the value is immediately clear, right? Like, I'm using this ETH to actually do something. As opposed to what happens right now, which is like people have either stuck on centralized exchanges or they have a bunch of stuff in their wallet and they're just getting fished by like MetaMask support or like some of these scam sites. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess wallets right now are very much simply storage solutions, or I feel like I've referred to them in the past as a folder on my desktop. I open the folder, I drop things in it, and I can look at them and move them. But it's not necessarily an application. It's really just a folder where I'm holding things. But yeah, it's something that I work for Unstoppable Domains, and it's something I think we're thinking about a lot is how do we make that wallet experience better? And for us, one of those ways that we're trying to add value is through NFT domains, so that instead of your wallet address, which is a long cryptonumeric, 0x, then a ton of letters and numbers after that, you can use like peteryang.nft or josh.crypto. And that experience too can help onboard, the next X million people to crypto.
Exactly. Yeah. Like,
what about identity?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about identity? What's the?
I was going to ask you then, like, what about identity and how do you see that? How do you see that shifting the onboarding experience?
I think, like you mentioned, I think maybe there's this concept of a Web3 identity where instead of like a LinkedIn where like people make up a bunch of shit, like you actually have on-chain credentials and stuff that you did on-chain that you want to showcase, right? Like maybe you built a DApp or like you did a bunch of transactions and like stuff they want to showcase. And there's also a concept of like extending beyond that where you can sign everywhere on the internet with your Web3 identity. And you can also communicate with other wallets or other Web3 identities. Um, I think it's very interesting. I think the Web2 social networks have very strong network effects, like Twitter, right? So it's going to be very hard if you're trying to build like a Web3 Twitter or a Web3 Discord. It's got to be like a step function better than what the Web2 solution is. And the other thing about Web3 is that, it sounds good in theory that it's nice to come to a page where everyone can see Peter's on-chain credentials, right? But in reality, like if you go to Etherscan, the data is like really messy. There's like a bunch of, it's like a database that's not being cleaned, right? So like, I don't necessarily want to showcase the fact that I bought some DGen token and lost a bunch of money. So like,
Yeah.
you gotta give people some way to polish it up a little bit while still keeping the honesty and the transparency that's core to Web3, if that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah. I actually watched this crypto documentary on Netflix last night. And there was this one part where they were talking about, it was about this Canadian exchange that had this massive rug
Yeah.
pull. And I don't know, no one really knows if the founder is alive still. But they were talking about, we have to go to the blockchain and start researching where the money went. And in the movie, in the doc, it almost looks like the Matrix with all these graphics flying
Mhm.
around. And in my head, I was just thinking, oh, this looks nothing like Etherscan, and you're trying to follow these transactions and like click throughs. And I don't really know what I'm looking at, but it's really not what people think it is when you're thinking about following the flow in this public ledger. But uh, you mentioned LinkedIn and credentials. So I think that brings me to really another point I want to talk about is how DAOs help democratize work and how that identity piece fits in here. But when could you kind of clearly explain here again in Web 2 how we do credentials and reputation and how that could change with the DAO and how that helps people access potentially, new forms of work?
Yeah. So in Web2, to get a great job, you need to, a lot of it is like these artificial filters. You have to go to good college, you have to go work at FAN or something, and like then like people filter your resume, and then you have a bunch of interview rounds, and then you get hired, right? But in Web3, I think the problem is that you can just like showcase, you can actually just start doing great work to get hired or to start contributing. Um, so that's the promise, and I think that's like that's probably the main reason why I'm so excited about DAOs because I think there's so much talent in the world, and it'll give people in other countries and even people in the States who might not have the pedigree or who might not have the wealth a lot of opportunity, right? Um, I think I think maybe the closest proxy to that, and I'm not a developer, but like it's like GitHub or something, or like something that shows like all the stuff that you did already. That's kind of like proof of work, right? So how do we extend that to like other types of contributors, like marketers or like product people, or like how do we do that? If we can figure that out, it could really make a huge difference in the world. Yeah.
And you really see this as an equalizing opportunity for maybe people in underrepresented communities or people not just in America being able to contribute to maybe work that they wouldn't have been able to because of geographical limitations or access to education. It sounds like that's what I'm hearing a little bit when you describe maybe that future forward perspective.
Exactly. Yeah. It's kind of like I guess kind of like the American dream, but like it applies to the whole world. Like that was gonna make that happen.
So, has anyone within Odyssey actually used, proof of work or some kind of on-chain resume to land a job with what you do at the DAO?
Yeah. So yeah, I have a lot of examples actually. So like when I started Odyssey, it was just me like writing a bunch of content, right? And like didn't have anyone to design or build a website. And then two community members stepped up. One is from Indonesia. She works at like a food product company, and another one is just like a Webflow developer. But like they really like put the Figma together and just started doing it and like started building the website, and it looks great in my opinion. Yeah. So that's like proof. It's not on chain, but like they did good work, and I can see the good work, and therefore, they should get compensated. And now they're like the product leads for the DAO. Similarly, we had a member in the community who just knew a lot about DeFi and started writing a bunch of DeFi content, and I could see that the content was actually really good. So now he's like leading the whole DeFi path, and he'll probably teach the DeFi course if we do one. So those people are like super
Oh,
valuable,
wow.
and people that we want to retain in the DAO, right? They're like talent that we want to retain in the DAO.
No, super interesting that community members stepped up, contributed, and now play an integral part in what you do. I'd be really interested to see, as you progress, how you eventually do give them some kind of badge, some kind of reputation that they can then show to others. And it's really hard with the reputation and the badges, because even if you do, let's say the person who made the website, you gave them, I'm just going to say like, I made a website badge, right? How does that translate to like other companies or other DAOs? It's hard, because what makes your badge the credit of like the gold standard of reputation versus what could come from another DAO that has a completely different standard for the quality of work. So that's an issue I see right now. I'm not sure how we overcome that, but still finding ways to show some kind of on-chain example of contribution, I think, are definitely valuable.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, DAOs themselves probably have a reputation. Like, if you get some on-chain credential from Odyssey DAO, like, it's only meaningful if the Odyssey DAO course or whatever we're doing is actually valuable to people. So, yeah, that makes sense. Like, uh, I think that's also why we're trying to build a brand of Odyssey DAO, trying to make the content really high quality.
Maybe there needs to be a crediting DAO that actually rates like AAA status for all DAOs in the space. That's the one trusted source.
Yeah.
But again, that's probably not very Web3. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think there's some friends working on
Now
like
talk.
Yelp for DAOs or something. I don't know how it's gonna work out, but yeah.
Oh, cool. I got to check that out. Now talking about how DAOs can help democratize finance and asset ownership, let's dive into those two segments since we talked about work. So with I think asset ownership's a little more interesting than finance, because finance has been a topic that's really been drilled into a lot. But how do you see this? How do you see DAOs helping solve for asset ownership in this Web3 and creator economy world?
I think asset ownership, like when I think about asset, like NFT is like a unique asset, right? So like that is like asset ownership, and I basically think like every single creator will start using NFTs as a key monetization channel, just like how they use like advertising and subscriptions right now, right? Like I think NFTs are especially valuable for your 1,000 true fans, or whoever's going to go with you on this journey. And a creator community is basically a DAO, right? I mean, it could be a DAO, and it could actually be a way to scale up a DAO much more. I think right now maybe there's like a few handful of like quality DAOs, but like if every single creator actually has their own DAO, their own community powered by NFTs, that could vastly expand the ecosystem that we have right now. So like you're basically going down the creator use case. You buy an NFT. You're basically owning a part of this creator community, and theoretically, as the creator becomes more popular, or the stuff that they produce becomes more valuable, your NFT will also appreciate, and you'll be able to participate in the upside.
Yeah. Now, this is totally on the spot, so sometimes brainstorming sessions on the spot aren't always valuable. But I have a question I want to throw to you. So I'm a podcaster, and truth is, I'm not looking to monetize from my community off my podcasts. If you were to throw out an example, how would I integrate NFTs or a DAO into how I connect with the community, the people listening right now, the people I chat with on Discord? Is there a way that I can think about it besides just the truth is I'm not really looking to make money, but I think it would be really interesting to have some kind of NFT and incorporate it into what we do. And I haven't quite come up with the answer to that yet.
For the podcast?
Yeah, I'm just throwing it out because I think that's a version of a creator, and you were kind of talking about the creator NFT, use case here.
So how valuable a creator NFT is really depends on how much utility the creator ties to the NFT, right? And like a lot of fans, they don't like the money thing is good, but they just want to have access to the creator. So in your particular example, like if I'm a super fan of Unstoppable Podcast and I buy an NFT, it'll be great if I can get some special access to the podcast. Like maybe I can call in or be like a 5-minute guest, or maybe have like a backstage pass to the guests that you bring on to have a private chat with them after the podcast is over. Like that kind of stuff will be super valuable, and like will be why I bought an NFT as opposed to only hoping it appreciates in value.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point there. The NFT can provide more than just monetary value for the creator or the fan. It can be an access point, and so you threw out some good examples like access to the getting questions involved in the podcast for the guests, or maybe it's getting a one-on-one like webinar type thing or Zoom call, or maybe it's even podcast episodes that are private just for NFT holders. So it's definitely something I'm going to think about a little bit more. I appreciate you throwing out some examples on the spot there. And talking more about assets and NFTs, what kind of, I've seen you talk about, new I own X, like NFTs right now are their access memberships. We've seen music NFTs, collectibles, art. What are some new types of assets and use cases that you're excited about in 2022, that are going to be represented with this digital token?
So far, a lot of it is just like JPEGs and art and like profile picture stuff, right? And like, I think the natural next step would be to expand to other types of media. So like music and video and other types of media. And there's also like a kind of like emerging use case where like, NFTs provide access to communities. But like, if you think about like regular life, like what are the most valuable, unique assets that you own? It's stuff like my house, or like it's stuff like, I don't know, even like my marriage certificate, right? Those are like very valuable, unique assets. And they come with like a shit ton more bureaucracy. Like let's just take the house example. Like when I bought a home here, there were like maybe like 10 different middlemen that took like a huge cut, and they all made a huge profit because the house is like super expensive, right? So how do you allow people to buy and sell houses directly through some type of NFT? It's going to be a much longer process. It's not going to be able to, like, if you start a company in this field, there's like so much bureaucracy and stuff that you have to jump through, just like an incumbent industry that you have to fight against. But if you find a way to unlock this, it could have a massive impact on people's lives. So the founders and entrepreneurs who have the courage to do these other types of assets, like I really encourage them. I want to help them, right? Because like that's how you bring crypto to the masses and bring utility.
A really interesting one I just saw this past week, and I'm seeing it pop up a little bit more and more, is Step. I think it's like Stepin. It's this NFT, like I think a new developing wave of assets or NFT use cases we're going to see is like X2. Instead of play to earn, it's going to be something to earn. And so this Step NFT is run or walk to earn. And then I saw one that is, it's kind of like Google Maps. They're creating a Web3 version of Google Maps, and you can put like a dash cam on your car and like drive and map to
Yeah.
earn. And so these additional use cases where we're incentivizing someone to help contribute to the broader network, and in exchange earn the native token. I think those kinds of use cases are going to kind of proliferate here as people get more comfortable with the idea of doing something to earn, and what that looks like. And even with like helium miners, if you've heard of those, it's like you put up your miner and then you're providing like infrastructure to earn.
Mhm.
So stuff like that.
Yeah, I think there's two ways to get an asset, right? You either buy it or you earn it. And I think it's the earning part that really kind of like democratizes access and gives more people opportunity. So yeah, the more use cases there, the better.
Totally. So let's talk about some DAO problems now. And like this is an evolving space, so it's okay for there to be problems. We're working through them and people are innovating to, solve
Mhm.
them. I've seen you talk about three: discovery, onboarding, and compensation. Can you walk me through some of these problems, how you're thinking about them?
Yeah, so discovery is there's so many Discord servers out there. How do you find something that I'm actually interested in? I mean, honestly speaking, the best tool to solve this problem right now is just like Twitter, right? You just follow people and like you find these DAOs. But there's probably a
Yeah.
product out there that's like a DAO directory or something where not only it shows all the DAOs, but it shows like what kind of activity is going on and like what kind of people are involved and if you're interested. And then once you discover a DAO that you're interested in, onboarding is like a massive problem for DAOs. Um, because it's very hard to go from like entering a Discord server to actually figuring out where you can get value or add value. So we need like products to like right now people just use like a Google form or something, right? It's like, hey, which part of the DAO you want to contribute to, what are your talents, blah blah blah. But there must be a better product out there where maybe you can carry over some credentials from other DAOs. You can like list your interests and your talents and like just get onboarded without having to like manage a bunch of Discord servers. Um, and what was the last one that I mentioned? I think it's compensation, right? So
Compensation,
yeah,
yep.
so there's some like very near-term problems where like if I want to pay 30 contributors, I should be able to bulk pay them and not have to wait till midnight for the gas prices to become low. Um, there's some tools out there that already solve these problems. There are some broader problems where like a lot of DAOs use like bounty boards where like let's say I have a bounty where you write a blog post and I'll give you 0.1 ETH, right? Uh, but what I guess what ended up happening is like 10 people will do this ticket and like 9 times out of 10 it'll be like a crappy blog post and I actually don't want to give you any ETH for writing a crappy blog post. So like how do you make the compensation transparent, but also make sure that people are not wasting their time doing work that will not be accepted? Like that's like a pretty hard problem to solve. Um, so yeah, there's like a lot
Yeah.
of problems there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that compensation one that you just mentioned sounds super tricky. It's just like in Web 2 or in a traditional company, that filter is you hired someone. So you did the pre-screening already. You trust what they can do, and then you have checks and balances within the company. But now in a distributed way, it's how do you provide those checks and balances? Because I could totally see a world where most of the responses are not the ones that you actually want to use. And then that's a lot of wasted
Yeah.
energy and could also potentially lead to just people not wanting to contribute again in the future, which discouragement is definitely not the goal of any DAO that's trying to build, from the ground up grassroots
Mhm.
style. I also wanted to make a comment on the discovery topic and this is something I've talked to the CEO of Unstoppable, Matt Gould, about and it's kind of like just a future state that I think I see this going is, okay, so you want to discover DAOs. We also want to discover NFTs. And I think part of that is using the data that you carry to contribute to like recommendation algorithms that we're so used to today in Web 2. But we don't just want everybody to be able to see all the transactions we do. And so right now, a lot of times we connect to wallets with our website. And a better way, I just flip that around. We connect to websites with our wallet. And that's how we have some access. But instead, if we could log in with your NFT domain, and as an NFT domain owner, I can then permission certain data points that I've connected to like my profile and my identity. I could allow a website to access my NFT collection. I could permission a DApp to see my transaction history or to see my interests that I've tied to my domain, like through some off-chain data connections. And that can give marketplaces, it could give dApps like information on what to serve up to me for like potential interests. So that's kind of a place that I see discovery going in the future is how do we as individuals who have digital identities permission decentralized applications to access pieces of data that we give them. Then the decentralized app can take that data and help with that discovery journey. Because right now, when you connect to a dApp with your wallet, you're giving it pretty basic functionality, but it's really not taking any it's not taking your data into account. It's just really creating a connection point to do some kind of transaction.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, data is all public on the blockchain, right? That's what Web3 is all about. So being able to parse that data and like personalize the experience using that data will be really valuable.
Will be super interesting to see who starts that personalization journey, because I could also see I think for crypto curious people, that might be something you're looking for. For crypto native people right now who are like deep into crypto Twitter, that kind of access is probably something a lot of them don't want, because it is kind of the big company tapping into your data narrative. But at the same time, in a world where we have way more digital assets and like there's more websites than you can search for, without those recommendation algorithms and understanding the user, it leads to a worse experience. So I think it'd be valuable.
Yeah.
All right. Well, to be conscious of time here, I have a couple more questions and I want to dive into our Web 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
But I want to ask, as someone who works in Web 2 from a product side and has a lot of experience in that world, what lessons learned from Web 2 are you finding yourself applying to Web 3 from a product perspective? And I'm asking this because I'm hoping people in product roles can take something away and apply it to their projects too.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's actually a lot of lessons to be learned from Web 2, both good and bad. Like the core product fundamentals around starting with the customer problem, understanding the user journey, and like building a great experience. Like it doesn't matter if like Web 2, 3, or 4, like that applies always, right? So and like I think a lot of that actually gets lost in Web 3. Like I see a lot of people just like starting with the solution as opposed to like actually understanding what kind of value you're trying to provide. The good thing about Web 3, the other part of Web 2 is like, especially in these like larger companies, a lot of it is just like driving engagement and A/B testing and trying to improve the metrics. And thankfully, Web3 has not been like that so far. Like in Web3, people care a lot more about the community and the vibe, as opposed to just trying to grow some number by 2%, right? and I really like the fact that the qualitative feedback loops is like much more powerful in Web3 than Web 2. And it's not just about trying to improve engagement and sacrifice, compromise elections or something, right? So I think that's a positive trend. But honestly, a lot of Web3 right now is developers building for other developers. And I think with more designers and more other functions coming in, I'm hoping that it will improve the product experience by a lot.
Totally. Yeah, no, good comment about quantitative metrics being as important, if not more important than qualitative ones. I might have just switched that up too. in reverse order. The vibes. We're here for the vibes. Like the energy, the positivity, the engagement in terms of just people actually having conversations. That's a metric that's something to track and pay attention to. And may sometimes be hard to put numbers
Yeah.
behind, but so important in crypto right now. And as people are finding their digital community, they're finding the people they want to hang out with and spend time with, and that's so cool. The previous podcast guest said, the internet vaporizes
Yeah.
geography, and when that happens, we have people coming together and now getting to choose who they spend their time with, because you're not limited to where you actually live, and you don't just have to go to your park or your local bar or your community
Yeah.
center. You can find those places and those communities online.
There's like a lot of lonely people out there, right? Like they're born in like a small town or like somewhere where they can't find their community offline. So yeah, I do think it's very powerful that they can now go online and find like-minded people. Yeah, that's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, and it's partially why like Twitter's become basically now besides the fact that it's where all the crypto alpha goes down, it's why I've enjoyed Twitter so much versus like my Instagram, which I'd say I was much more on. Like Instagram was just all the people I knew from growing up, and now Twitter is all the people I've just encountered online. Um,
Mm.
so can you tell me about one of the coolest DAOs, if there's any on your radar besides Odyssey that you're keeping an eye on?
I haven't had a chance to look into it deeply, but I'm really I think Syndicate DAO is pretty interesting to me, where like democratize being able to participate in fundraising for like the hottest startups or like the hottest assets. And there's like I think one use case that DAOs have been really good at is just like getting a bunch of people to pool a bunch of money together to invest in something, right? Whether it's like the
Yeah,
Constitution, a golf course, or some other thing. Um, so I'm really excited about kind of like this Kickstarter 2.0 Syndicate DAO thing, to fund to fund hopefully more projects where it's not just like for the memes, it's more to improve the world. Yeah.
totally. Yeah, I like that one, and I've seen Syndicate Tao pop up several times on my timeline. It's one that I need to dive into more as well. And a
Yeah.
question we got from the community, it revolves around a family, and the question's basically, is a family a DAO? And I guess it popped up from a conversation that was happening on a Twitter space, and I'd just be interested on your quick take on that. Are all families a DAO?
Yeah, dude. Don't you know, like I'm running my family on Snapshot. Like we have a vote each time. No, it's a family, a DAO. Well, it depends on like how democratic the parents are, I guess. Do they want their kids to be like, is it like a democratic process where like I should do homework and you're like, hey, let's have a vote first, or what? Honestly, I haven't thought too much about it because most families are smaller units, right? So like, it's more like 3 people or 4 people. Um, I definitely don't think like if you're talking about making my extended family a DAO, I don't think that's a good idea. I don't want my aunt and uncle to vote on what I do.
Yeah,
So yeah, I haven't really
yeah.
thought
No,
about that. Yeah.
you're kind of right there. Families are smaller units of people, and I think that DAOs really, the real value prop of DAOs start coming into play as that number expands. So there's probably similarities to be drawn, but the number of people involved, so there's something there to that. All right, to wrap up, let's do our 1-2 Web3. I got 3 questions for you. One is, can you give me an influential Web3 creator, entrepreneur, or collector that's inspired or educated you?
Okay, I'm gonna shout out my NFT project, my favorite NFT project so far, which is Wonders NFT. They're like kind of flying under the radar a little bit, and the founder's name is Nick. And he could have just made a JPEG collection, but he went off and made like audio, video, and like a whole like space storyline around his collection, right? So I think that kind of extra effort and commitment is really interesting, and I think he's doing great work.
Yeah, that you kind of combined my first and second question there. The second question was, what's your favorite NFT? It could
Hmm.
be Wonders, but maybe I'll extend this to, what's your favorite DAO?
Well, I mean, we are actually planning an NFT collection for Odyssey, and sorry for like plugging a little bit, but like I'm very excited about
Please.
it because we want to highlight the diversity of talent in Web3. It's going to be like anime based. We found like a really good person to lead the art. He works at one of the top gaming companies, so I have a lot of hope for the art. And we're gonna try to tie some utility to it, where like if you buy the NFT, you can get the course that we're working on, and like you can start being a co-owner in this DAO.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, excited to
So
see that come out. And then
yeah.
third question, in 5 years, what's the craziest thing you think we'll be doing in the metaverse that people aren't thinking about yet?
Okay. Well, like right now, like I'm kind of old, but like I know the kids are spending a lot of time playing Roblox and like hanging out online, right? I think there could be come to a point where like I'm not sure if this is like good or bad, but like the default mode, you actually enjoy hanging out more online than offline because online you can find people who are into whatever niche you're into. And the metaverse, instead of just like a forum or something, is like immersive enough that it feels like real life, right? So there could be a point where maybe it's already happening with Roblox, where the people, when they come home from work, they're like, hey, I'm gonna go hang out with people who are like crazy into anime like me and like go play games with them, as opposed to hang out with like people who are into sports or something in my neighborhood, right? Yeah,
Totally.
I think that's gonna
Yeah.
happen very soon, and it's already happening.
Love it.
Yeah.
Appreciate those answers, Peter. Can you finish this up and let everyone know where they can connect with you online? Plug your social handles for everybody.
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter. I'm at Peter G Yang on Twitter, and then I have a blog at creatoreconomy.so. And then if you want to learn Web3, come check out Odyssey at odysseydao.com.
Perfect. Thanks so much for this conversation today. I definitely learned a lot. I have some takeaways and some new thoughts on DAOs, so I appreciate your perspective there. I'm going to keep reading your blog and be following Odyssey. So I like the mission, and I've been on your Twitter Spaces before, so I like what y'all are doing. Everybody, thank you for listening to the Unstoppable Podcast. Please be sure to like, subscribe. If you follow on YouTube, subscribe there if that's where you're watching our content. We put our videos out there. We put YouTube clips out on YouTube. And of course, every week, another episode of the podcast. So I appreciate everybody tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Peace out.
Thanks, Josh. Cheers. Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Unstoppable Podcast. If something we said today resonated with you, please subscribe, leave us a review, and share this with your friends. And remember, this conversation doesn't have to end here. Tweet us your thoughts, ideas, or questions at Unstoppable Web. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.